and Craig giving us a lot of good information, and hope you did well out of the Pegasus. We're going to do a similar kind of a chat and learn right now. We've got a very nice stake card again at Gulfstream this week. That coming on the heels of last week's Holy Bull card, and come right back with the Sewanee River and the Gulfstream Turf and the Gulfstream Park Handicap, as well as a couple of other interesting spots. And we'll even touch on a 12-5 maiden claimer, which just kind of shows that you can find winners anywhere. In fact, amazingly, there's a winner in every race, and we got winners lined up tonight. Dan Tordjman is with us, and so is Craig Walker. Dan, Happy New Year. Haven't talked to you yet this year.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Happy New Year to you. Good to be back. Last time we did this was Breeders' Cup, and my lasting memory from Breeders' Cup was me trying to convince you that Syndergaard was going to win the juvenile, and you laughing at me. So I think we know how that turned.
Well, the way it turned out for Syndergaard was the way that the Holy Bull turned out for Classic Empire a little bit on Saturday, and it just shows that these young horses, they develop on different timing, and coming out that there might have been something amiss, as it turns out, with Classic Empire, so they'll try to regroup for the Holy Bull. Craig Walker, for you, every opportunity to show the players how to utilize Stats Raceland is exciting and fun, and we think we've got some nice opportunities tonight.
Yeah, I think so too. Dan's got done a lot of analysis, and he's going to go over a lot of the races, like you mentioned, starting off with the second race. And I was glad that last time Lafitte and I kind of helped people out and gave out a couple nice winners, so that was good too.
Well, I tell you, the thing that you guys did together, for anybody that was already convinced that Arrogate was pretty much just, I don't want to say slam dunk, but pretty much was the horse that something needed to go wrong for him to lose. And you and Lafitte pointed everybody toward Shaman Ghost and Neolithic. And for that standpoint, that was really the key, was to come up with the second and third place horses. And for those that played supers and the high five, you pretty much gave them the blueprint. And that's what Stats Raceland is. It's a blueprint. It's a blueprint that is different for every single person that looks at it. And that's really one of the things that we try to stress, that whatever your particular interest is as a handicapper, if you're a speed capper, you're a pace handicapper, you like to incorporate pedigree and aptitudes for different surfaces and distances, whatever you like, the tools are there in Raceland to help you focus in and find different kinds of horses. We'll show the example today when we look at 3 stakes and a maiden claimer and a very nice allowance group, and we'll start it actually and work our way through the card. We'll start with the second, Dan, and here's a 12-5 maiden claimer for 3-year-old fillies, and there are some that seem to be on their way to career maidenhood. There's 3 first-time starters, or 2 first-time starters, and also a horse that's coming back second start of the career, which can really change things up. We've got some turnbacks. We've got some turf to dirt movers. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge group.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, and a lot of times, especially when you're trying to tackle these lower level claiming races. I mean, for me, if I see, if I see a new face, I see a horse who hasn't run before, I see a first-time starter, I'm going to take a closer look because, especially the ones that you mentioned, the ones that look like seem to be poised to be lifetime maidens. I mean, there's a reason why they haven't been winning, and if they're at this level, it's because they're not that great. And so, when you see a first-time starter, you got to take a look, no matter what the pedigree is. You take a close look at the connections and so forth. And what I noticed about this race in particular, and talk about the tools of Stats Raceland and kind of what what it affords you is right here. If you're looking at this, this is sort of the home screen here, and you scroll through the races. When you see a red number light up, you see a red or a green number light up, it means that one of your angles, one or more of your angles, has been matched. And so here there are 2 matched angles, and both of them deal directly with pedigree. And for those who can see it here on the screen, it says first-time starter, sire, offspring, profitable in debut, and then first-time starter, sire, high win percentage with first-time starters. So if we go ahead and click on this horse here, the one-horse Baby Leah, we'll take a closer look at the sire and the dam of this horse. All you got to do right there is you actually click on the sire right there, and what's preset here is that our stats for the past 5 years on the dirt sprints, and now this is a 5.5 furlong dirt race. And so what I want to do now is modify to include only first-time starters, like Baby Leah. So I go days between starts, I hit first-time starters, and I hit apply. And essentially what I'll see here is kind of my attention was alerted to begin with, and that's that you've got 84 starts from the offspring, and 19 wins, 23% win percentage, 36 in the money finishes, 43% in the money. So look, 23% win percentage out of a sample that's large enough, I think 84 starts, pretty good sign. You move over to the dam, and once again, I'm just going to sort of modify just so you could see the first-time starters out of that dam. So you see that she's produced 4 horses here, and from each of those 4 horses, there are 4 starts. She has one winner first out. That's this horse here, Imperial Luck. Take a look here. See, Imperial Luck won on debut. This was back in 2011, but won by 8.5 lengths. Came back, won by 9 3/4 lengths. So that's generally a good sign. You know, again, we're looking for horses who have the potential to win early, especially in a field that looks pretty soft. And that's sort of what jumped out to me. Now, another one here, you talk about kind of, you know, what else has this dam produced? This one here, AP Chino. This is a horse who's earned $427,000 lifetime. Yeah, a lot of races there, long career, a war horse there now at 7 years old, but a horse who's proven durable and has won sprinting and going long. And then, you know, you could also take a look at the trainer here with first-time starters. You see a smaller sample here, 12 horses, 12 starts, 1 win, 2 in the money finishes. You could modify to include this 3-year-olds and older. You could include all starters. And see what we come up with here. You've got 8 winners from 64 starts, so again, not impossible. Daniel Pitta can have a horse ready first out. So all that to say, you know, that's race lens, and this is sort of, again, if you're on the run and you focus most of your attention looking at the bottom half of this card, which is, you know, loaded with stakes races, or the back half of the card, which is loaded with stakes races, and you kind of just, you know, you're looking at the early races, seeing if anything stands out. For me, you know, and I'm a guy, admittedly, pedigree is not generally my strength. I mean, I know sort of the obvious pedigree angles, you know, which stallions produce well, especially when early pedigree. But, you know, sometimes, again, when you're kind of just, when you're on the run, or if you want to decide which race to take a closer look at, having an option like this here with this 2 lit up here that tells you that you have some angles that are stored, that are now matched, gives you a reason to take a closer look at the race. And I know, Craig, you wanted to point out one more thing here, one other feature that sort of can help draw your attention to horses like this.
Right. So if you happen to not have the angles on for those first-time starters, or you don't really look at pedigree very much, you can see that the sire and the dam both have the green circle around their name, and so that when a horse is a first-time starter, those names will be circled so that you know that sire or that dam has a high win percentage with first-time starters. And you went through the math of it. I mean, if a person doesn't want to spend the time clicking everywhere and looking up that information, you still have it there at a glance that you know, hey, this horse is has a possibility of running well as a first-time starter. Also, one other thing I thought of, if you click on the sire's name again, like you did before. So just the other thing that you can use whenever you want to look at first-time starters or you're looking at turf breeding or something, if you just click on View Sire PPs, so that's going to show, it's right up in the header, right up in the top, above show all.
What?
above show all, Dan. Yeah, above the show all button, it says View.
Right
yeah.
I got it. Yep.
If you just click in there, you'll see that also that sire, you saw he was 3 for 3 lifetime. He won as a first-time starter, of course, if you're 3 for 3. That's just another piece of the puzzle that, hey, maybe, it's another clue that this horse could run well first time out. So that's all I wanted to point out.
Right. Good stuff. I think that, and that's, just wanted to kind of point out there as well, again, that, for people who are playing the races and we're very focused on trip handicapping, watching a ton of replays, who are really digging into pace and trying to make projections as far as pace goes. Sometimes pedigree gets overlooked, and it's one of those things where, I know myself, I only have a limited number of time to look at the races on most weekends, and so, I don't have, really the time to look up, what Bring Me Luck has produced, over the course of her career as a broodmare. So these kinds of tools are certainly helpful to me.
Now, you also, you've got all the usual kinds of stat angles that you can play with. You look at something like one of the favorites outside, that Poopsie Doopsie for Dave Brady. Here's a horse that's going to be dropping 50% in value. First start is a 3-year-old. This is a horse that's been away since September. You can go and try to find out, what kind of first start as a 3-year-old Brady might possess. How about Buff Bradley? It looks like Buff with the Kitten's Joy. This is a horse that is being dropped to the bottom from a 50,000 maiden introduction, a horse that they paid 40,000 with. So they're looking to potentially win a race and get out with this horse, and going turf to dirt and cutting back as well, taking the blinkers off. You could plug all of those kinds of stats in, see if Buff has done that kind of thing in a combined fashion. Jaramillo sees fit to ride back too. You do have some of the obscure jocks riding in this race. These are notoriously tricky. Generally you want horses that are lightly raced, as opposed to a horse like What's Your Dream or any kind like that. That Pacamanca for Enrique Sanchez that's had 10 tries. Generally you want a first or second time starter in a bunch of basically a ragtag group. You got a much classier group, and they're going to go a route of ground, 9.5 furlongs in that 7th race. This starts the Rainbow Six, and of course was hit the other day for 800,000, and we'll start to build again. It's a first level allowance, or $35,000 claiming, and I think only one horse, if I'm not mistaken, is in for the 2 horses are in for the tag, the 10 and the 11. Everybody else is running for the allowance, and you do have some horses making their seasonal debuts in here, including Barak, the Shadwell homebred by Distorted Humor, 4-year-old Ridgeling, who was cut out to be a nice horse. Talk a little bit, Dan, about what jumped out at you in this group.
Well, I think for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned, horses coming in from different places and in various circumstances, I thought this race was fairly wide open. And the interesting thing about this race was that when I first looked at it, it was listed as a dirt race. And that seemed kind of odd to me because most of these horses, have been running on the turf, and it just didn't seem to make sense. And the one horse in particular, who I couldn't figure out why they would move him back to the dirt, was Conquest Sandman. I still tried to make a case for him because I thought that he was headed in the right direction, and I'll kind of elaborate on that case in a second. But I saw major improvement last out on the turf, and so it didn't make sense that it was a dirt race. But actually, it was an error. It was listed as a dirt race, but this is actually a turf race, and it's been corrected across the board. So the bottom line with this race is that I think it's wide open, and I'm landing on a horse here who's 15-1. if I had to kind of point to one horse on the entire card who I think that you're going to get some decent value for, I don't think you're going to get 15 to 1 on this one. But I do think that getting something in the range of 8 to 12 to 1 is realistic. We'll see how many people are listening and hammer this horse after I make my case. But here's what I'm thinking here. So basically, this is a horse who came in last out off a 2.5-month break, rallied strongly and close to within a length and a quarter of the winner. You see here this 96 Equibase speed figure. I mean, that's a significant jump off of where he was at in his races prior. So he posted a career best, but not anything that would kind of scare you where you would think, potentially a bounce. This is not a 120 here, but he's headed in the right direction off of a little bit of a break. And what you also notice here, in another feature of Stats Race Lens, is this red arrow here. So this is the trouble indicator. Again, if you're just looking at these races and you're reading notes, what this note tells you here may not be enough to kind of make you want to click on it and take a closer look at that replay. But when you have a trouble indicator, you take a closer look at the replay. So that's what I did here. Conquest Sandman going 7.5 furlongs last out on the turf at Gulfstream Park. He's the 6 horse, and we've tried this before, and sometimes the video quality isn't great. So bear with me. I'm going to try to kind of lead you through this here a little bit. And I'll expand the screen here. Okay, so here we go. Now, this is Conquest Sandman right here. He's on the rail. It's the 6 horse. Keep your eye on the move he's about to make and decide for yourself whether or not he had any trouble. So right there, a horse cut in front of him. All right, not too bad. But here he is making the really sharp move up the rail, passing 1, 2, 3 horses. Here he goes. Is he gonna cut through? No, he steadies. He steadies, and again, when he finds a little bit more room, he keeps on coming, but you could tell he's more or less wrapped up late because the jockey has nowhere to go with him. So, and I should have let the gallop out run a little bit, but he did gallop out strongly, and what makes me think that he wants this distance is that, on debut, they tried him going 1 1/8, and in that race, he missed by just a neck. And that was his, you could argue that his maiden winner was probably his next best race. But if you really look at it on the numbers and on an overall performance, to put up that kind of effort on debut, going 1 1/8 on the turf at Gulfstream, pretty impressive to me. And again, they bring him back going 7.5 furlongs last out. They're now stretching him out. They're also moving him up slightly in class, which again indicates a degree of confidence. So all of those signs to me were extremely positive. Now, again, if you want to get into stats, trainer stats specifically, click on Mike Maker. And again, remember, we're talking about a horse second off the layoff. So right off the bat, you see the stats that are kind of loaded in for you are in the past 5 years, second off the layoff, 3-year-olds and older, 24% win percentage. Obviously, large enough sample there to feel confident. But now let's kind of narrow it down a little bit. We know that this is a turf race, so we're going to go in and we're going to click on turf races, second off the layoff. We plug that in, and you see a 26% win percentage. Again, 107 wins out of 411 starts. In the money 50% of the time. I mean, look, if you follow the races, Mike Maker is a good turf trainer. This isn't, you're probably not falling over in shock. I mean, that Mike Maker can do this kind of thing. But again, just kind of confirming what you already know. You can go back and then narrow it down even further, the distance category, and go sprint to route. Let's see how he does sprint to route. Again, solid numbers, 22%, obviously a little lower percentage in the money, but 8 wins out of 36 starts. You know what you're getting with Mike Maker. And on top of it, what you see here, if you go back into the PPs, you've got Luis Saez, who, I think is riding as well as anyone, especially on the turf. He sticks with this one. Another good sign for me. I won't go through all the clicks again to show you, but obviously his win percentage for Maker at Gulfstream is 26%. He's also 57% in the money. So, you couldn't do much better for a combo, especially a combo on the turf. So that's my case. I know, Craig, you also noted something about Conquest Sandman that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I had noticed that he was gelded before the last start. You talked about the improvement going from the 82 to the 96. And then when I looked up underneath the lifetime records box, where you have all the earnings and everything, below that is the latest sale price, and you can see that he was purchased for $62,000, and that was from the Keeneland November breeding stock sale. And so this one piece of that happened to be the Conquest Stables dispersal, because they were getting rid of all their horses. And so, you know, the owner and trainer thought enough that, hey, we're going to get this horse for $62,000. They decided to geld the horse, and as you noted, the improvement. And so I expect this horse to keep moving up, and you know, they obviously saw something in the horse, and I think he's a great shot at 15-1 morning line. And the horses that I would throw in with him, just an exact, are just the top rated True Odds horses, and that's the 1 Nessie at 7-2 and number 8 War Bond at 6-1.
Here are the True Odds here for Craig is referencing there. So these are your True Odds. Right. And you see Nessie is 3-1 off a 7-2 morning line, and then War Bond 6-1 morning line, 5-1 on True Odds. Conquest Sandman 14-1. So maybe a little bit of an indication. If I get 14-1, I can tell you what, I'm firing away on Conquest Sandman.
There's a lot to like the way you've picked out, both of you have picked out areas for Conquest Sandman, and this is really Maker's wheelhouse, stretching out to this distance, and it's been frightening what he's been able to do of the last several years. And I even talked to him a couple of weeks ago after his latest claimer, you know, became a stake winner. You know, he claims these horses for 40 to 62.5, and has made several. I mean, between the Big Haas and Al's Gal, it is an amazing run of success for a guy who learned how to train from D. Wayne Lucas, who certainly wasn't sending out a lot of turf horses. And Maker has just absolutely found between him and Three Diamonds in particular, who does a lot of this claiming, they have had just a tremendous run of success. And this horse makes a lot of sense. That morning line may be a victim of the classic Gulfstream bet down. I would also point out Flying Bullet here. This is a Stronach, a Dina homebred that is out of Perfect Sting, the wonderful Perfect Sting by Smart Strike, and is a horse that Jimmy Jerkins has actually had some time with now. And I would think that Flying Bullet, you know, just on class alone, Jimmy's horse is running well, and he should sit, you know, very nicely. It's going to be interesting to see how this pace unfolds. It doesn't look, given the distance, like there's a tremendous amount of pace, but the fact that Barak ran well on the lead last time at this distance, we'll see. Maybe Juarez, who loves to hug the rail, we'll see what he does. And Nessie, as you mentioned, Craig, Nessie could sit a real nice trip, saving ground down inside. We're saving ground, and we're going to head to the first of the stakes that we're going to discuss. And if we'll do them in order, I guess we'll go right to the Grade 1. Here's the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap, a race that's got 3 Grade 1 winners, including last year's winner, Luke's Alley, Beach Patrol, Devisadero in here, and much more. This is really a nice set of horses, and worth every bit of that Grade 1 there.
Yeah, you know, it is a really nice field. I think what's strange about this field is that you look at horses like Devisadero, and you think if this was a year ago or a year and a half ago, and you know, all the excitement around Devisadero and what he might be, and I think it's safe to say that he's kind of, you know, fallen a little short of expectations. And then what you have is a couple of horses coming out of a race last out who were right there at big prices. You have Flatlined, who won last out in the Fort Lauderdale at odds of 15-1, and then you have Almanar, who's down at the in the 2-hole here. And he finished second at 11-1. So, you know, I don't know if I'm convinced that those horses can repeat. I think that they both had really, really nice trips. I think, if anything, Flatline had to do a lot more work to get off the rail and run the race he did. So I think he did really earn that win last out. I would say, I would say I believe in him a little bit more than I do Almanar, because Almanar had a dream trip and really had no excuse to lose the race. But the horse I end up on here, and it's not that exciting, is Luke's Alley. So as you mentioned, won this race last year, and he won it second off the layoff, just like this spot right here. And if you look at the PPs, it looks like potentially he's fallen off here in these two races here, his last two races. But you note again the trouble indicator here, and I won't pull the replay up, but take my word for it. He had a lot of trouble last out of the Fort Lauderdale. A really, really rough trip. He was moving nicely toward the leaders when he was forced to steady, shuffled back, covered up. He had nowhere to run. It was a mess of a race for him. So I can see, I can see there being the opportunity for improvement here. Gulfstream again. He's run a couple of good races here, including the race that he won last year. And then the race 2 back here, again, if you want to throw it out because it was over the synthetic surface there up at Woodbine, you could do that. And so that's kind of where I landed. I think the horse that's going to take a lot of playing here is the horse just to his outside, and that's Beach Patrol. He's run some of his best races going a mile and an eighth. He took the Secretariat. That was at a mile and a quarter, actually, but he took the Secretariat last year at Arlington. And, he's got a couple of decent races coming in. He doesn't really do much wrong, but he also doesn't win that often. It seems like he finds ways to lose. If I, again, show you the obvious here, I think we all know, again, Chad Brown, his turf prowess, well noted, but here's a horse coming in first off the layoff in a turf route. I just kind of wanted to show you these numbers because, you talked about being insane and kind of, what we're getting with Chad Brown on the turf. But let's see, let's pull this up here. We are surface, turf, and let's see what that does. It's 27%. When I ran the numbers, I ran them slightly differently earlier, and it came out to a 29% win percentage. Again, we know Chad Brown on the turf with horses like this. Beach Patrol is going to be ready to fire a big race, and he probably will. What I also like about Beach Patrol is that I really don't see too much pace in this race at all. And, he's won on the lead. And so, I could see him getting out to the lead. I think he has a clear pace advantage here. And, I think he's going to be pretty tough, but I'm not going to take 5-2 on him. I'm not going to take 2-1 on him, again, because he's shown a propensity to kind of find ways to lose. So I'll go with Luke's Alley. Craig, I think you said you had a horse at a slightly better price, maybe slightly more interesting than the ones I've thrown out.
Yeah, just if you click on the True Odds button, so we can bring up the True Odds screen and the race projection, and just my thing is just like you said about number 4, Beach Patrol, that he's going to control. He could possibly control the speed of the race. If you look at the race projection, if we read the pace commentary, it says that the pace may be slow in the early part of the race, and there's an advantage of the horses on the front end. I just think that the number 8 horse, All Included, that he's 10-1 morning line. I think he's gonna be the horse that's out there, or just maybe 2 lengths behind the 4. And if the pace does go slow, I just think that maybe those two can slow it down, and they'll both be around and be part of the exactas and trifectas. And so for me, the 8 horse, I'm just, if it ends up being a fast pace, I mean, I think his chances decrease greatly. But if it plays out like I'm hoping, I think those 2 horses are going to be right there at the wire. And that's just kind of my play with that, kind of putting him in the exotics is the way I would take a shot at this race. And
he is, and True Odds has him at 6-1 right now too, from the 10-1 morning line. I mean, again, All Included is another one who I think you're not going to get 10-1 on, but I think looks sneaky good in a couple of ways. I'll let Steve chime in though on who he likes here.
Well, I'm a gigantic sucker for Divisadero under any circumstance. I think it's very noble that Buff has been loyal to Edgar Prado. I think Edgar's hurting Divisadero, frankly, but that's for Buff and Gunpowder to decide. I think you'll see him better positioned, and I'm not convinced that this pace is going to be all that slow. In fact, I'd love it if you play around with either true odds. You can play around with the true odds and show the difference between a pace that heats up a little bit, and let's see how it changes this group of horses.
So, I mean, like what I've had preset here is, I have sort of a default template here that had speed. It ranked as a high, a high variable there. Which way do you want me to go with this? You want me to test anything out in particular?
I want you to speed up the pace. Take the pace from, you've got pace set at 1, take it up to your 4 or 5. No, that's 5 is a little too fast. I would back it down to a 3 or a 4 and see what it does to the odds. Okay. And it basically didn't. Did it change? Here we go.
I think it. Yeah, I mean, more or less. Let's go back here. See if we.
Yeah, you should do it for what you want, Steve. You should do it less.
So we should. Where do you want to go with this? You want to try 4?
Yeah, I mean, no. You want to go less. So you should go to 1 or 0. I would try 0. And hit apply. Yeah.
There we go. So you now.
Divisadero is the top pick. I mean, when you look at the win percentages. Right now you have it on the odds, so it has them both the same, but it is slightly favored, Divisadero.
Yeah, that was the thing that I kind of toyed with, and I think that there's a little bit more of an honest pace here than we might think at first glance.
While we're on the win percentage probability factors, Craig, do you want to kind of talk about this a little bit? This is like, I think one of the coolest features, and there are a couple of these that I think bear a little bit more explaining in terms of like what we just did with pace, and explain what we're doing here and how this is going to affect the percentages that are produced.
Yeah. So just one thing I want to say is that it's sort of a black box in a way, because what all these factors, the development team at Stats, I mean, they've done lots of different sports and stuff, and so their quantitative analysis team came up with these sliders and came up with hundreds of factors that go into the different categories, and so the true odds, when you look at the true odds column, it's always based on all these factors being 1, so everything created equally. Later on, towards the end, I'll show you how you can control these sliders in an automated way, and how they are currently done in an automated way, and that's what gets reflected in the true odds. So one thing that when you were playing with them and Steve was directing you, anything that you do moving these sliders, when you move it to a 5, it's going to be more important. So like you may think that in turf races, class is very important and the jockey is very important because of the tight turns and you got to carve out a trip and all that. So I'll show you later on how to set up sliders, but for an individual race like this, yeah, you would just put those both at 4 and then hit apply and just see how the factors play out. And so now you see, like to Steve's point, this horse, the 6, Divisadero, now becomes like a heavy favorite. So according to true odds, the Divisadero should be, if you look at the adjusted true odds, you put it on that one, because true odds is just when all those sliders are at 1. But the adjusted true odds is what happened when you put the two different, the jockey and the class, at number 4. And so now it's saying that, like, this is reflecting more what Steve thinks. Hey, at 6-5, Divisadero is a bet. He's a win bet, and anything higher is gravy. And so that's how your opinion can be reflected in the adjusted true odds. And it just takes a little bit of trial and error. I mean, really, it takes just a little bit of time to go through some different races, and you'll see what works for you, and you'll see how your opinion, what you need to do with the sliders to help make it better on a race-by-race basis. And then later on, I'll kind of show how you can set it up for a more automated way for certain types of races.
I've said before that to me this is really I love tinkering with the true odds. It's been I sometimes just out of curiosity, even a race that I'm really not looking at very carefully, I'll try to get a read off of playing around with it, and to me it's one of the really fun trinkets on the system. Should also, I want to ask too, I do see a question. Bill is asking, Craig, a clearer way to change probability by your opinion of the pace scenario would be great. If I think the race is early, or the bias is more to early running, he'd like to set it up that way. I mean, how do you like to utilize the pace rankings to judge that?
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, you can't. It doesn't always go the way you want, because, like I said, there's so many factors that go into pace in the true odds and the adjusted true odds. So on those sliders, so you can't say exactly how it's going to move. I mean, we do have on our list of suggested things of maybe breaking the pace down into late pace and early pace, and maybe that will work better. But also you have to remember that if we do that, that the stats quants team has to go through the numbers and make sure everything makes sense, and that the true odds, are as predictive as they are. So, I mean, that's something that we do have on the back burner. One thing that we're just tackling right now that should be out in a couple months is we're really working to improve the mobile experience. So it's going to be really nice. It's going to almost look like a mobile app, and it's going to have Race Lens is going to have a nice look and feel, and you'll be able to, in this day and age, a lot of times if you do all your work beforehand, if you just have what you need on the phone, it makes it nice and easy. And especially when you go to this true odds page and you have the adjusted true odds the way you want, you're going to look for those highlighted yellow numbers, just like you would in this race for Divisadero, and you would know, hey, I'm going to bet him if he's anything above 6-5, and that's what we're working towards. And so once we get that done, we'll be able to incorporate more of some of the user suggestions. We've done, lots of them so far. There's been at least 20 major changes already in the last few months that were suggested by users. So, keep giving your suggestions, different criteria for angles. The ones that we think help the most people have been getting implemented, and so we're still on that path, and I still encourage people to keep giving us feedback.
Well, let's press forward. We got 2 races to discuss, and let's move back 1 race in your PPs to the Suwannee River, and the Grade 3 for fillies and mares. They're going to go 1 mile and 1/8, and right now Sandiva, who supposedly was going to retire and go to the breeding shed, Al Shakab Racing and Todd Fletcher are basically taking full advantage, and she can probably stay on for who knows at this point? She certainly was terrific in the Marshalls River, and she comes right back. Seacoast involved in here. There's a cross-entered player, Alicia's World, the South Cuban Champs-Élysées filly. You do have quite a number of horses making their seasonal debut. Sharp Kitty, her first start is a 4-year-old. Puka, who seemed to be cut out to be a nice horse. She's been back from an injury layoff, and it's her third start off a layoff, but it's her first start as a 5-year-old mare. I mentioned Elisa's World. My Sweet Girl from the very productive Bonner Young mare, bit of whimsy. And this Bernardini mare, I've got such respect for what the Youngs do in Barclay Tag. Very interesting presence in here. Chad Brown also brings back Goldie Esponi, who was on a nice roll before she got hurt in the winter of 15. And she's been gone just over a year. An interesting player in here. I'll try to, while we're talking about it, Dan, I'll try to find out if Chad Brown has made a decision on Alicia's World.
Yeah, that was one that I was interested in, and you know that was also a potential price, which is which made me even more interested. I saw that she was cross-entered, so that would be interesting to find out. But you know, I don't really have anything too exciting here. I want to make a little bit of a case for Puka in a second, but again, just wanted to show another feature here in terms of matched angles. One of the most sort of obvious ones. You know, not that it would take too much to find out in this race, but. The horse for course here, you know, pretty clear that Sandiva is a big fan of the turf at Gulfstream Park. So if you go into the PPs, again, you have that obvious angle of horse for course, 7 tries over the turf, 4 wins, 2 runner-up finishes, and a third-place finish. As Steve mentioned, you know, this is a horse who, you know, who's about as classy as any of them in here. Clearly, you know, I think we talked about $750,000 plus in earnings, likely making her final start before being bred. She also won this race in 2015, and you know, she outran both Seacoast and Dickinson last out, winning the Marshalls River. So I mean, and you know, again, it's a pretty big number. That's the second highest Equibase speed figure for her. So she's still right at the top of her game, and I think she's going to be extremely tough to beat. And the other thing I like about her is that she generally runs from slightly off of it. And this, unlike you know some of the earlier races that we looked at, I thought the pace here projected to be pretty fast. Cali 37, Sharp Kitty, Dickinson can all go. Goldie Esponi, I don't know what to expect. This, you know, sort of a wild card here off of the really long break. Goldie Esponi, last seen December 2015, winning the La Prevoyance. So I'm not sure what to make of Goldie Esponi. If I'm going to make a crazy argument, it would be for Puka. It would be, you know, this race. You know, I watched this race here, mile and the 16th on a wet turf course at Aqueduct. She won, and again, I mean, you know, she's facing, you know, non-winners of 1. So I mean, not exactly, you know, proving that she can hang with these kinds of horses, but. She did it well, and you know, her prior race on the turf here, 3 back, the Wonder again, second highest career Equibase speed figure. I mean, she was nowhere close to Lady Eli in that race, but you know, I didn't think she ran too bad of a race. You know, considering the pace was fairly slow, and she was dead last all the way, you know, all the way around, and she made a little bit of a move late, and you know, I mean, she was just outclassed there, but you could make an argument that you know she could, you know, taking that next step here off of that last effort, she could take a step forward here and maybe find her way into the money. It would be, I think, a pretty huge price.
I can also tell you from Chad Brown, who I just checked with, he's going to run Alicia's World at Gulfstream. She will scratch out of Tampa.
Yeah, so that one's interesting. You know, that's another one coming out of an allowance win, but who's been tested in this kind of company, and really, if you go back, you not too far, the Lake George last year, finishing a length and a quarter beaten. Comes out of this race that I think everyone remembers, the Lake Placid, that nice battle there at the end with Time and Motion and Catch a Glimpse. She was a couple of lengths behind them as well. You never know. Of a little bit of a break, we talked about Chad Brown. Bringing in a horse like this, in a race like this on the turf. There's, I think we've all been burned questioning his ability to take a horse and move him forward in a big way in a spot like this. So I think she's a live player at that price.
Well, I just wanted to say the horse that I liked was the number 1 Seacoast, and her morning line 6-1. So she did just finish behind Sandiva. The thing that I like about her is, she's starting her 6-year-old season, and if you look at her last 4 races, the 115 is if you mouse over it, the green tells you that it's the highest speed figures at the distance and surface for the horse. You look at the race before, she ran a 110. The 91 Equibase speed figure was on a soft track. Obviously, she didn't like it, so you throw that out. And then you have the 111 in the race before that. So those are all the best speed figures she's ever earned, and that's 3 out of the last 4 races, and the one bad one was an excuse. So it seems like a horse that's maturing, coming into her own. I just think this horse could even improve a little bit more, and is going to be steady and could possibly have a really nice year. And the jockey is riding really well lately at Gulfstream on the turf, and I like that too. So at 6-1, I think that horse is a nice play in this race. It should be a part of it.
Well, a good group in the Suwannee River, and I may when Chad Brown has to make a choice like that, when he cross enters, he's not wrong too often, and I at 8-1 on the morning line, I may end up. I wouldn't have. I didn't at first glance think I wanted her, but he's a nice finisher. You got Rosario; it's his style, and I think I may end up gravitating in that direction. Let's gravitate to the last of the 3 stakes, and this is a very tricky group in the Gulfstream Park Handicap. They're going to go the 1-turn mile, and you got Tommy Macho running back, and of course that terrific effort in the Howell's Hope last year when he ran the big race in the Fred Hooper. He was sidelined for a good 7 months. Nice to see him able to come straight back. You're also seeing the return of Blofeld and in the hands of Rusty Arnold. And Blofeld for Glencrest, John Greathouse. You've got a couple of other interesting players in here. Cassie with the Awesome Banner, and Cassie takes over from Eddie Plisa with Awesome Slew, who has been a bit of a frustration for Mrs. Weber. Sharp Azteca makes his 4-year-old debut after battling to the wire with Mind Your Biscuit in the Malibu opening day at Santa Anita. Zulu shows up. This is a very nice group.
Yeah, I agree, and this is also a group, and I mentioned that whole horse for course that you could find here, and you've got just about all of them lit up in this race. Tommy Macho, Zulu, Sharp Azteca, even Awesome Banner. So, kind of digging into the PPs, I think just logically looking at this race, Sharp Azteca should be able to pretty easily get to the lead, and it'll probably be there for a long time. The question is, does Sharp Azteca hold on? And that's kind of what I wanted to look into. So what I did was, and again, just looking at George Navarro, I expected the stats to be pretty high here, and I'm going to modify all of these factors here. I'm going to go ahead and, instead of the past 5 years, look at the past 2 years, and then I'm going to go specifically to dirt races, and for distance, I'm going to go routes. Okay. And then specifically what I'm going to do is you could also use a track filter here. I want to see Gulfstream Park, so I'm going to use today's track. And what I see here, it was a little surprising to me. I expected these numbers to be a little bit higher. Also note here, first off, the layoff is what we're looking at here. And with George Navarro, I would consider this a negative angle. You're looking at 2 winners from 21 starts. So it's a negative angle for anyone, but especially for George Navarro at Gulfstream. So that was a little bit of a red flag for me. Again, you got to judge every horse on its own merits, but I did find that to be a little bit surprising. When I think of Sharp Azteca, I mean, I think of a sprinter. And again, asking the horse to go a mile isn't like asking the horse to go a mile and a quarter, but and on top of it, the horse is 3 for 3 at the distance. So here I'm making a case against the horse based on the distance, but I thought that was a little bit of a red flag. And this is a pretty tough field too. I mean, you look at some of the races that Sharp Azteca, comes out of. While there are a couple of good races, you look back at the City of Laurel. I love Laurel as much as the next guy, but the horses that he's distancing here, Hot Seat and Rated R Superstar. You look 3 races back, beaten by Texas Chrome, and so mind your business. Biscuit's pretty nice horse last out, beaten a half a length. Can't really fault him for that. Puts up the highest career figure there last out. So I'm kind of in between on this horse, but I know for the price that we're going to get, I'm not feeling the confidence that I want to feel on Sharp Azteca. So the way I'm envisioning this, and I kind of went to True Odds and I looked at this, and True Odds, I believe it does have Tommy Macho as the likely favorite here. It has Sharp Azteca obviously leading throughout, and then Tommy Macho making a late move. Tommy Macho has been absolutely lights out at Gulfstream Park. You mentioned the last 2 wins over the course, and the Hal's Hope, and then the Fred Hooper by combined 9.5 lengths. Was out of action for 8 months after the Hooper, and didn't seem quite right when he came back in the fall. Looks like he's back in form, and my only concern with Tommy Macho specifically would be that that's a 24-point jump right there in the speeds figure there from the Dickie Small Stakes going to the Hal's Hope. So potential for a bounce. I mean that's a huge number here. Has only run anything close to it one other time, so. Could be that, but then again, it's Pletcher, and I don't, I think you could probably get at least one more optimal performance out of this horse before you might expect the horse to maybe go in another direction. But second off the layoff here, I think it's a pretty safe play here that Tommy Macho will be cranked up and ready to go. The other couple ones that we mentioned, Zulu, I think, as we know, is a horse who's done well over the course. Finished second in the Fountain of Youth last year at Gulfstream, and last out, another pretty impressive performance here. So, and he's also one that should be sitting just off of it. It's just a matter of I don't know if he has quite the same turn of foot as some of the others. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. And this is kind of a tough spot too for a horse who, who's lightly raced relative to the rest. So. Those are some of my thoughts on this.
Craig, anything that jumped out at you?
No, there really wasn't anything about this race that I probably was just going to play the logicals and any type of pick 4, but there was nothing that I found that was anything out of the ordinary to point out.
Strictly from a form standpoint, to me, the interesting horse in here is Realm. And if you go back to late in the season last year, the last third of the year, he started to get good. And this is a classic Barclay tag development horse in the Jersey Town mold. A horse that is going to win a race like this somewhere along the line. I don't know if he wins on Saturday, but at 15-1, and I can tell you he'll be every bit of that, because there's just no way in a field with two Pletchers and with some of the other familiar names and with all the money that Navarro draws, Realm will be a price. Paco Lopez, you never have to worry that you're not going to get your money's worth, and that you're not going to have him in a position, if the horse has got something to offer, Paco Lopez is going to give you everything you could want. And what's really nice about Realm in this spot is he can sit behind those speeds. And if there is enough pressure to wilt Sharp Azteca, then Realm is the horse that can really pounce at the right time. And I'll put Paco Lopez up against anybody finishing in this race. He could very well be third again, but I love horses like this that are going to be 15, maybe even more to 1. And if I can back wheel him and reverse tri-key him with the logicals, you're looking at a trifecta potential, or put him underneath the logicals in an exacta. This is the way I play. Find a price horse and try to put him in the number and bet him right. You bet him a little bit to win, so that if he does light it up, you're in place, but you really position yourself well for him to be second or third. And I think he's the right horse to play with in here.
I like it. I obviously didn't have a strong opinion here, so heck, I'm probably going to go with you. I'm going to text myself right now a reminder on Realm. So you made a pretty strong case there.
I mean, think about it. He got these 5 lengths in the Cigar Mile to Connect and Divining Rod. What would Connect and Divining Rod be in this field?
Yeah, it's a great point.
You know, I just, you know, and in terms of last time, Tommy Macho blitzed that field, and as it happens, Birdsong was my play in that House Hope, and played him that same way. I'm telling you, Realm, I don't know if he'll win the Westchester or if he'll do something in the Met, but this is, if you pulled up Jersey Town's career, it would be a blueprint for what he's doing with this horse. But for what it's worth, and so there it is. Let's quickly look at the applet for a second, and I want to make sure that I didn't miss any questions. Got anybody else have anything in here that? Oh, there's John Stetton. John likes Realm, and John can pick out a price. There you go.
The horse is going to be 3-1 now. We're looking at 3-1.
Well, I don't know if it'll be 3-1, but I love it. Well, we hope everybody. Hope that everybody, you know, one of the things we don't stress enough because we get so excited talking about races, the Sats Race Lens team, like Craig and Chris and everybody involved, they're so ready to help you with any aspect of utilizing the system. And if you have a question, if you have an idea, as Craig said, there's been several dozen new additions to the system based on players, you know, on users' suggestions. If you have any problems at all, and it's something that isn't working, just reach out, and the team will absolutely readily answer your question and help. It's a very, you know, very user friendly in that regard, and we appreciate it, Craig.
Yeah, thanks a lot. There was just one quick thing I wanted to show people because we added it at the end of last webinar. So let me just take over the screen real quick. And so I just want to show people because Lafitte was on our last webinar, and he came up with some of his own angles that we wanted to put in as the expert angles on the product. So if you now click on Manage Angles, you will see at the top on the left-hand side of the deactivated angles that we have these 18 angles that got added that were all angles that Lafitte came up with. And so if you want to activate them so that they come up like Dan has been showing us today, where the matched angles come up, all you have to do is hit, like if you want to do horse for course at Gulfstream Park, that's a profitable angle when there's a horse for course, particularly at Gulfstream. That's one that was found. You just would click the activate button, and then you click on save, and that will now become part of your activated angles. And any horses that are horse for course at Gulfstream, the way that Lafitte came up with it, those will be matches now. If you just want to add all of Lafitte's angles, all you do is hit on the little source, the filter icon, and just have Pinkai listed. And so now all his are there. If you just click on activate all, that'll move all of Lafitte's angles over to the other side, and when you click on save, they'll all be over on the activated angles. So we had promised that at the end of the last webinar, and I just wanted to let people know that that's how you can get those activated and start taking advantage of those angles that he came up with.
Outstanding. And in fact, Lafitte, I think Lafitte's joining us for our next webinar. And I'm advised by Rhonda on the spot. Don't forget to follow Stats Race Lens on Twitter, and that's one place you can ask questions too. And you could also thank Craig when he gives out the Stats Race Lens angle of the day, like it won earlier today at Fairgrounds. Good job.
Yeah, and we get an Irish War Cry. We gave that one out too, so it's a couple nice ones.
Absolutely, and I'll remind everybody of one other thing, that if you're still new, utilize the stable mail aspect. To me, it's remarkable because it points out if you've got your set of angles and the things that you highlight and you checked off, it'll email you with the horses that day that fit your criteria, and you cannot believe it's unbelievable how often you see a horse that's been emailed to you never would have looked at Sam Houston or at Delta or God knows. And that's one of the things about this that's opened my eyes to opportunities at locations I never would have looked at.
Yeah. It's pretty cool seeing all these notes, by the way. I didn't see all the questions that people were sending in and the comments. It's really cool that people have really just sort of embraced it. And I think through social media, as Rhonda had mentioned, Stats is doing a really nice job of reaching out to people where they are and kind of showing them that, it's not only a product that's kind of forward-thinking and forward-looking, but the overall presence of Stats Race Lens is, I think, very kind of cool and hip, and it's social, and it's reaching people where they are, and I think a lot of handicappers are on Twitter and they're on social media, and they're looking for new opportunities and new ways to get an edge, and I find that this product's been extremely helpful to me, specifically, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to pedigree. Steve, you don't need any help in that category, but I do. And just in terms of filtering out certain angles and coming up with like even a negative angle, like the one I pointed to with George Navarro. Like for me, I mean, again, it may not completely move me off a horse, but for a horse that I wasn't overly confident in to begin with, seeing a stat like that kind of made me feel sort of a little queasy. So. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you again for having me on here.
And thanks for everybody for tuning in. If you missed anything or if you came in late, the replay available and also available at Equibase. Check for regular deals and offers and buy one get free, that kind of thing. And there's regular opportunities for those that are just wading into it. There's also the race of the day that can help you get more acclimated, and we hope everybody enjoyed and picked up an idea or two. Enjoy the races this weekend. Tremendous, again, another great Saturday. Good racing at Tampa, too, of course, and Gulfstream. Nice card Saturday at Aqueduct once the snow gets cleared away. and Santa Anita as well, the San Vicente on Sunday. It should be a great weekend. Everybody, want to thank you for joining us. Want to thank the Stats Racelands team and everybody at Equibase. And also a public congratulations, too, to Ellis Starr. Ellis continues to be on the mend and focused in during the NHC and won the charity contest, beat 40 different personalities and pundits and you name it. Great job by Ellis. And I can tell him, if he's listening, that Jenny Reese is still kicking herself that she had traffic trouble. Otherwise, she might have gotten by in the nightcap. So good job, Ellis. And thanks, everybody. Thanks to Dan Tordjman, the anonymous man, of course. Follow Dan. And Dan, before we go, EquestriCon update.
Yeah, no, everything is going well. We've got a lot of support, a lot of excitement. We just released a new promotional video. Thank you for the platform to plug it, EquestriCon.com.
There it is. If you're going to be, if you're coming to Saratoga this summer, try to overlap. And it's going to be just too much fun. And the roster of seminars and the programs is just a myriad of things and names and people you're going to want to meet and listen to and interact with. It should be fascinating, a great concept. First, basically a horse player / industry / fan convention, essentially. And
for the fans, absolutely.
Yeah, should be tremendous. Greg Walker, thanks very much. And talk, when's our next one? I don't even know when our next one is.
I think it's a couple of weeks from today.
Very good. All right. Well, I think I'll be at the HPCA convention in Vegas, and we'll look forward to it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks. Bye.